Hello. During this presentation, I will illustrate you the components of the physical environment that is assessed by the VISUS methodology. In the previous modules, you have deeply learned about the CSS framework that is founded on three pillars that are safety learning facilities, school disaster management, and risk reduction and resilience education. It is possible to see these pillars also through an IT interpretation. The safe learning facilities can be considered as the hardware, and the disaster management can be seen as the software that works with the hardware, so the planning, the response, and the continuity. And finally, the risk reduction and resilience education pillar concerns the ability to use hardware as software in order to achieve school safety. VISUS methodology focuses mainly on Pillar 1 of the CSS framework. That is, it mainly assesses the educational facilities in order to check their safety and permits to establish action plans aimed at avoiding deaths and injuries in learning facilities, but also seeking the continuity of education after an hazardous event and limiting the losses, if possible. In doing this, the application of the VISUS methodology meaningful spreads also on Pillar 2 and 3. Indeed, the assessment of the safety learning facilities allows to construct the basis for the definition of building maintenance, non-structural mitigation, as well as fire safety. All these items strongly depend on the knowledge of the physical environment of the schools that are the learning facilities, buildings, and also schoolyard, where the children play. Moreover, we will see that the implementation of the VISUS methodology aims at transferring knowledge to local users, that are technicians and students of the last years of engineering and architectural faculties. This approach allows to strongly increase the structural safety education, as well as to see the construction as an educational opportunity. In the next presentation, you will see many photos like this. These pictures were acquired during survey conducted by local university students for the application on VISUS. And in these pictures, you will see also the presence of children that follow the survey and ask questions about the survey. This is an extra value of the methodology, not explicitly considered in the application and the design of the methodology, but that could help increasing the attention and awareness towards safety at country level. The multi-hazard assessment developed by the VISUS methodology focuses mainly on the physical environment of the schools, that in the following will be referred to as a school complex. So the school complex is composed by the location where the school is, by the buildings where the school activities are performed, and by the schoolyard where the children go and play. You can see that the school complex assessed by VISUS is different from the school considered as the institution where the learning is performed, so elementary school, high-level schools, and so on. For each of the learning facilities previously mentioned, VISUS assesses the safety situation, then the safety upgrading needs, and the status, that means the conditions of these learning facilities. These information are also provided as an overall estimate for the school complex. So an overall judgment is provided for the school complex and a detailed judgment is provided for each facilities. That means for each building and for the schoolyard. The learning environment, as I told you before, is composed by different elements that are assessed individually by the VISUS surveyors. And it's important to know which are these elements also because they allow to establish safety upgrading strategies in an effective way. So in VISUS, we use the terminology school complex in order to refer to the set of schoolyard and school buildings. All this. And the location is the site where the school complex is placed, while the schoolyard is the uncovered area of the school complex, and usually is used as the playground or sport field for children to play during school hours. The main buildings of the school complex are the buildings hosting the main school activities, so classrooms, offices, laboratories, and so on. While the ancillary buildings are the buildings hosting the main services that are useful for functioning of the schools, such as, for example, toilets, archives, storage, and so on. Then there are also the accessories that are structures that are not fully configurable as buildings and that do not need a specific evaluation of the safety, but that they could affect the safety assessment of the school, such as, for example, gazebos, sheds, carport, and so on. They are assessed with the schoolyard. There is also we found the need to define what is a building. It is not so simple. So we just here show some examples that are very simply configurable as buildings, but also this can be a building. Also, this is a building in some country for schools, and also this is considered as a building, an ancillary building, for in a school complex. All these pictures come from the VISUS Photo OBS, that a database of pictures acquired after the application of the VISUS methodology in a previous pilot project. In this case, they come from the Mozambique pilot project developed in 2018. Buildings, as I told, in VISUS are defined considering main and ancillary buildings. The main buildings are those in which the main school activities are performed. So in these buildings, there are classrooms and offices. In the ancillary buildings, there are the essential services activities that support the main buildings. For example, toilets, storage, gym, laboratory, library, canteen, kitchen, archives, auditorium, dormitories. So a building is an ancillary building if it hosts entirely these kinds of activities. Then there are the accessory structures that are not configurable as buildings, but that can have, and then they don't require a specific report for safety upgrading purposes. That are, for example, gazebos, carports, sheds, technical rooms, and these are considered in the schoolyard, so as an element of the schoolyard, and therein they are evaluated. In this picture, I show you how some photos concerning main and ancillary buildings acquired during the past VISUS pilot projects. We will see in the next presentation how these pictograms are used in the VISUS methodology in order to refer to specific characteristics of a building. These pictures, I just anticipate you, are called OBS and support the surveyors during the acquisition of the data during the VISUS methodology. Just to show you, these pictures are acquired during different VISUS pilot projects all over the world concerning main buildings where school activities are performed, classrooms, and so on. These are pictures of ancillary buildings. In this there are toilets, and in this there is a canteen. Then buildings are separated considering if they are permanent, semi-permanent, or temporary. This division is useful for decision-making purposes because permanent buildings are defined as structures to build in order to last for more than 10 years, and it's built on a permanent site, so builds that are built in order to stay where they are. Semi-permanent buildings, on the contrary, the structure is built on a permanent site and has foundations, but and generally the ground floor and the foundations of the buildings are permanent, while the structure and elevation, the walls, the roof, are usually temporary. This is an example of semi-permanent structure. Then there are the temporary buildings. So when the structure is conceived to be used for a limited number of years, approximately less than 10 years, and it's conceived to be quickly substituted. These are examples of temporary buildings.